Ahoy! Welcome to the Writer Talks. Hope all of you are keeping safe and are adhering to all the precautions. It is the best we can do in the given scenario. Let us hope and pray for a speedy end to this catastrophe in India. My guest today, Matt Nagin, is a true embodiment of this adage. When the going gets tough, the tough get going. He turned his adversity, his battle with COVID last year, into a creative enterprise and brought out his extremely well received collection of poems, Notes from the Bonfire. Matt is a versatile, multifaceted maverick in the truest sense of the word. He lives in Alabama currently and is a writer, stand up comedian, actor, and director. Matt has three poetry collections to his name: Notes from the Bonfire, Feast of Sapphires, Butterflies Lost Within the Crooked Moonlight. His poems, If We Are Doomed, won the Spirit First Editor's Choice Award in 2018, and in 2019 his poem, Birds Singing in My Chest, was published in the anthology New York's Best Emerging Poets. His poems have been hailed as powerful words from a writer of real talent. Matt's political diatribe, Do Not Feed the Clown, published in 2019, has a cult following. As a stand-up comedian, he has performed in 7 countries, and his directorial debut, The Inside Job, was featured at 6 international film festivals, winning the Best Shot at the Mediterranean Film Festival Cannes and the Best Supporting Actor at the Nice International Film Festival. He has also featured in the now popular TV series Hunters, besides others. It is hard not to be swayed by his infectious energy and sharp intellect. Matt has a long-standing battle with Crohn's disease, which has impelled him to raise awareness, sensitivity towards it, and funds for it. In fact, in some of his shows, he demonstrates his belief in self-deprecating humor. So let's dive in and watch this immensely talented writer, comedian, actor, director speak about poetry, humor, and the need to retain an inherent ability to laugh at oneself. But before that, please like, share, and subscribe to Writer Talks so that we can continue such rewarding literary engagements with brilliant writers from across the world. A big thank you to all my subscribers who have helped Writer Talks reach the 3-digit mark. I look towards you and your continued encouragement to march on. I do hope you enjoy watching me speak with this energetic writer, Matt Nagin. Until next week, to quote from one of Matt's poems, we go on. Stay strong, stay inspired, smile, take care, and ahoy. Ahoy! Welcome to the Writer Talks. We have the brilliant, multifaceted, highly talented Matt Nagin, all the way from Alabama. Thank you so much for being on the Writer Talks, Matt. Delighted to have you. Honored.
Well, I am very glad to be here, and this is so international. You know, it's Sunday night here
Right,
in the wilds of Montgomery, and I think it's Monday morning in India. So
right.
I feel like I can see into the future right now. Just talking about it.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, that's a nice thought, and it's a brilliant way to begin the week, I would say, for me actually. Being able to talk to somebody as talented as you are. Now,
Thank
you wear so many hats, Matt. I mean, you're a writer, poet, comedian, actor, director. Which of these are you most comfortable with?
I'm not comfortable in any of them, to be honest. You know, I just enjoy creating, honestly, and it's less important to me the mode than the aesthetic. But I guess my primary would be a writer, although I've wandered around into various modes. That was the thing that drew me into creativity. It started with the poetry and went on to other avenues, but that's my first love.
All right, all right. So we continue talking about your work, your writing process, and there are a couple of other things that I would really, really love to discuss with you. But before that, let's dive into this first segment. It's called the rapid response segment, where I'll be asking you a series of questions and pose a couple of options for you. So you will have to pick one of those options and then briefly explain your choice. Is that okay?
It sounds like a choose your own adventure. I'm getting. Let's do it.
All right. Okay.
Those books, the choose your own adventures.
I'm not very familiar with that.
Basically, just so you knew what my context, they used to have books where they had different endings. So you
okay.
choose different things, and you skip to page 67, and that would give you a different story. So they were fun because everyone read a different book, you know. And then when you had to do a book report, the teachers got confused.
That's fantastic.
Okay, so do your thing. I'm sorry.
All right. Okay. So the first question now. Between Alabama and New York, which would you choose?
Quick, neither. Okay, if I have to choose one, right now I choose Alabama.
All right. And why is that? Your reason behind that?
Well, right now I guess there's still lingering COVID over there. I think I'm safer over here, you know? Less likely to get infected when nothing around me besides pigs and goats and stuff. So,
Fair enough.
it's a good place for a writer. And also my girlfriend is here. So,
okay. So there's more than one reason.
Yes.
All right. Now, between satire and poetry, what would be your choice?
Satire.
And why is that?
Proud upon it? Okay, so, no, I mean, I'm first a comedian. And now I'm working on longer projects, and they're comedic. And I'd say most of my writing is in that vein. But then I also have the poetry. So yeah, I would definitely say most of my writing is satire, but the poetry is a little separate.
Right. Fair enough. All right. Between Oscar Wilde and George Bernard Shaw, whom would you pick?
I have to go with Wilde. You know, I love the wit. I love the sort of snubbing his nose in societal rules.
Right.
You know, The Picture of Dorian Gray was a very influential novel that you can always return to and find something else. So no, but Shaw has some very interesting ideas as well. So, but I would go with Wilde.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. Between living by the sea and the mountains, which would be your choice?
Well, it's cliched, but I choose by the sea because, you know, it's like that old song, Under the Boardwalk, Down by the Sea. Anyway, so, you know, it's got the beach. It's very refreshing, and, you know, and sometimes when you go to just be careful though, it depends what sea, because I'm used to the sea of Coney Island, and that's a lot of refuse and used condoms and whatnot, and hypodermic syringes from heroin addicts. So that's not so pleasant. But you know, I like a nice, quiet, empty beach. That would be lovely.
Ideal. Right. Fair enough. And okay, I think this is a more dicey question. Between writing, reading, and acting, which would you choose?
I would choose writing. That is my passion of number one. And you know, stand up is a lot comes from writing. You're writing jokes and bits, and then you perform it. So yes, I would choose writing.
All right. And the final question now: between films and television.
100% films. I don't enjoy television that much. I know I'm unusual. There's occasionally a series I'll binge. You know, I want to go to Netflix Anonymous for that. But most of the time, I like a film. I'm old school, like a already film that is a complete and has themes and it comes together. You know, so that's my passion: film, actual film.
All right. Thank you for that. Thank you for being such a sport.
Sure.
Let me begin by congratulating you on featuring in this very popular series, Hunters. I believe you're playing a role in that, right? My apologies, I haven't watched it, but then I believe that you're featuring in that.
Yes. I had a small part in it, and I was in a scene with Al Pacino, and I was a Yiddish police officer and in a Mexican standoff with this FBI agent. So that was cool, and a nice little scene there. And yes.
And with the legendary Al Pacino at that, that's really impressive.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I mean, he's one of the greats, and you gotta just be awed to be in his presence, really, because the guy is incredible.
Right, right. Now, do you think you have a particular advantage being a writer because you're able to probe the script more acutely and you're able to see how the character is etched? Does that give you an advantage in making your choice of roles?
Yeah, maybe. I never thought about that. That's a great question. Um, I've struggled more with the acting and the not when I get the role, but it's hard to get the parts. So a lot of auditioning. So I feel everyone feels that they could bloom into something more if they were given the opportunity.
Right.
And so it's about getting the right role. And now this COVID has really put things on hold a lot. But things were picking up before the COVID. But a lot of it is about getting the role. Once you have the role, it's fun. You get in there, and you definitely know your lines,
Right.
and you sort of know how you're going to play it. So it's mostly different variations. Maybe the director has some notes, but it's mostly fun. The actual shooting. But the auditioning is the tricky part. There's a lot of people going up for a lot of roles, and you have to somehow differentiate yourself, which can be tricky. Does writing help? Maybe, but there's also actors who have lots of other benefits that I don't have. Much more theatrical training. Maybe they went to Juilliard. Maybe they have other coaching.
Right.
So it probably helps. I'm not sure about that. That's a good question.
Thank you. All right. Now, congratulations, and actually, highly relieved and glad that you are out of this horrendous COVID. I know you were afflicted, and as it is said about all writers, you also turned your turmoil and your travesty into something beautiful. You created such a lovely collection, Notes from the Bonfire. I particularly love the poem "We Go On." It was published last year, right? So,
thank you.
Would you like to talk about this collection?
Sure. Well, since probably some of your viewers are in India, I see the horrors that you all are going through right now, and that hits my heart. I mean, it sounds terrible. These 350,000 cases a day or something. Who knows if that's even accurate? And then all I see is the double mutant, the triple mutant. There's so many mutants. I don't know what's going on over there. But this COVID is a horror, and it's changed people's lives. Like few events, I think. So basically, I was in New York at the time of the first American epicenter, at least, was New York, and we were just learning about COVID. And as these newscasts were coming out, I was infected. So I was having it, and I'm watching, and no one knew exactly how deadly it was. So it was kind of scary because here I am having all these symptoms, and and we don't know. I don't know if this is it for me. So the whole thing threw me into a bit of a tailspin, and at one point I had to go to the hospital. I couldn't breathe very well. I was on various medicines, and fortunately I got through it. But the experience was so life altering that I felt I wanted to somehow respond to all this, and since it was so primal and so visceral for me, I thought poetry would be the best medium for that. And so the poems were just like a way of coping or a way of just responding to all this. And then, included a photographer friend of mine, his photos, and, illustrations by another friend, and just put it together with half of it going to charity and hoping that, this could be a way of sharing my own experiences and maybe raising awareness of COVID or just, responding to it.
Right. Fair enough. Fair enough. And I could sense the immense love that you have for New York City. I read the prologue, and I can really, it resonated with me because I feel likewise about Bombay. It's a city that's so close to my heart, and I could sense that. Would you like to read one of your favorite poems from Notes from the Bonfire?
Okay, the one I was would like to read to you. It's because it's a little darker one.
Right.
But the reason is because of what's going on in India right now. Man, you guys got it rough over there, huh?
Absolutely.
So
Unfortunate.
anyway, basically, this one was like, uh, I felt there was a little bit. Now, I'm not really that political. I mean, I'm interested in it, but I have, to be honest, views on both left and right. I'm complex, and I see both sides. I think a lot of intelligent people can see multiple valences or different perspectives. That's always been my thing. But in this particular incident with this pandemic, this poem maybe got a drop political only because I was like, it felt to me that there was like all this devastation and people were just being very cavalier about it, not following it. At least in America, I don't know how it is over there.
True. I think that's happened across the world, and that's one of the primary reasons why it has spread like this.
Yes. So that's how I came up with this poem, was sort of my response at the time. Now the thing with these poems, they were like primal. I wrote them in the moment, while I was having this. So anyway, so this one's called The Dead. The dead are our friends, smoldering, pouring like lava from the apertures in the earth, creaking, the desperate yawls, the miserable, wretched twisting of bones. They line up the cemeteries, are poured under the hot cement, tombstones as far as the horizon, crematoriums pumping out mountains of ashes, our friends, our beloved, those we trusted, those we planned to have over the house for goddamn tea. Oh dear friends, lost in the scourge, forgotten, piled up, reduced to a number. Productivity, they say, stock market up. Liberty, they say, individual rights. Don't you hear them twisting, creaking, begging through the lid of the coffin? Save me, they say, reach out and offer a life raft. But the money machine rolls on and no one gives a damn. Everyone too quickly forgets how precious it was, how valuable, how important really to have such friends.
Beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And it's also poignant and rightly so. I really hope that we are out of this scourge at the earliest. It's been really,
Yes.
really harsh on lot of us, practically on
Yes.
everybody.
Probably, to be honest. So when I was writing it, I may have been thinking also about, there was like overtones of my grandmother, because I was very close
Right.
with my grandmother. Now she didn't die during the pandemic, right before. I don't believe it was related, but she lived to 99, which is incredible. But we were so close, and she was so with it and so sharp, and a great inspiration to many. So I think that was also in the backdrop for me, missing her, and there's something about I don't know if you feel it, but there's still, even when they're gone, you have a connection
Absolutely.
to that energy or that spirit, and I still do sometimes feel her spirit. Now I'm not one of those hoity-toity crystal worshipping,
Right.
follow the rainbow and let's do a rain dance or something. But in this case, I think if you lose someone that you're very close to, and she was almost like a mother to me, yes, you still you can converse with them or you feel their energy. I don't know if you've had an
Absolutely.
experience like
No, I completely agree with you. I still feel that about my parents. I feel that I can connect with them and I can still communicate with them. Absolutely. You're right about that.
that. Absolutely.
Right. Now, moving on to your other poetry collections. So your debut collection, If We Are Doomed, won the Spirit First Editor's Choice Award in 2018. Yeah, I did read the poem. If You Are Doomed which won the Spirit First Editor's Choice Award, and in 2019, your other poem, Birds Singing in My Chest, was published in the anthology of New York's Best Emerging Poets. In fact, I think one of the points about your poems was powerful words from a writer of real talent. How does it feel to earn such high praise?
Well, you know, there's always a bit of the imposter syndrome. You know, all artists, I think, have that. You don't know if you deserve it or not, and you question your own worth. I'm more of one of those neurotic. I don't know if you like Woody Allen, but I'm like a neurotic Jewish guy, you know. So I don't like. I try not to let it get to my head. I try to get humble and try to keep improving and evolving. And yes, I do have. I will show you quickly. Sorry, the shame of self-promotion. So that's the notes from the Bonfire if you want to see. And
Right,
these are my first two books:
right. Please
The
do.
Sapphires and Butterflies Lost Within the Crooked Moonlight. So if you want to check them out. But yes, you know, luckily, just by pure chance, as far as I can tell, I've had some nice reviews, like that one from Kirkus Reviews,
Right.
and the readers seem to like it. But I had no idea when I put the books out if anyone would even relate to any of this stuff. So I'm always wondering. And this book is a comedy book, Do Not Feed the Clown.
Correct. It has
Which
a
is,
cult following, absolutely, isn't it? You
yeah,
seem
it has
to
a
have
bit of a
managed.
cult following.
Right.
And, you know, I didn't know if a couple of them would offend people, to be honest. And there were one or two that got offended. But I mean, overwhelming majority seemed to enjoy it and, you know, seem to be interested in it. And so that was great to get some positive feedback. You know, all writers and creatives, we love that, you know, because we're insecure and, you know,
And moreover, such praise and such adulation is not very forthcoming, especially when it concerns poetry. And it's always nice to see that when you're a poet and you're receiving these accolades, it's really really heartwarming. So you've
it's
clearly managed to strike a note with your readers.
well, thank you. You're making me feel good. I mean, I'm not going to have to, you know, pay the $200 to my therapist this week. He's saying, "Why aren't you coming in?" Well, I had a great podcast, and she said my poetry was terrific. So I'm good. I'm good. I'll keep the money. I'll see you next week.
Now, when and how did you start writing poetry?
I wrote poetry at about age 16. Okay, it's faintly embarrassing, but I keep it real. I was fascinated by Jim Morrison. I'm not sure if you're familiar, the lead singer of the Doors.
Okay.
And he wrote poetry and, of course, wrote songs. And there was a movie called The Doors by Oliver Stone. And I thought it was so transcendent and like trippy, and like I would smoke weed or like drop acid and like try to write stuff. But I didn't know what I was doing. And I wanted to be Jim Morrison, to be honest with you. I was convinced I was Jim Morrison or like his reincarnation, which was completely delusional. But you know, that was the start. And then I took a class at Penn State. I had a summer program before I went to college. I was still in high school in creative writing, and I started sharing poems there. And I started just filling up books with poems and hearing poems in my head. And there were years where I didn't write any poetry, and I kind of abandoned it. But then I got back into it later in life. But I always loved it. That was like my first love in terms of writing.
Right. Now, what about this really really popular book as we mentioned just a while ago? Do Not Feed the Clown. It has a cult following. How did you conceive this book?
Uh, well, it's an assortment of different pieces, so it's kind of cultural satire. It was sort of conceived over time because I would write these little pieces. Some of them would get published, and then I'd already had a collection of some of them, and then I added to it by writing some more for the book, and decide and sent it around to publishers, and I luckily found a publisher, and you know it it was just another avenue for comedic expression. I do stand up, or at least in the past have, and when I so this was a way to broach ideas and concepts that are harder to deal with in stand up, where you have to be a lot quicker.
Right.
And so a little more long form humor and conceptual humor and parodies and satires on various elements of our culture.
Right.
So that was the idea behind it. And to sort of be like a sort of like assortment, you could pick up any part and read a little funny thing, and it wasn't too much of an investment of time, and hopefully be entertaining.
Right. Could I request you to read your favorite section from this book?
Well, I don't know which is my favorite. That's a good, but I would read something from it. So basically, the only thing I could say about this is context is sort of important with this, because everything builds on everything else.
Right.
I will read one section, but I have to preface it a little to explain.
Right.
So this, I don't know, for India, are people in India familiar with the work of Stanley Kubrick?
Some people are.
Yes. Well, he's a very famous. Well, he's passed on. Very famous director. I'm actually a huge fan of his. But movies like The Shining in 2001, A Space Odyssey, A Full Metal Jacket, A Clockwork Orange, etc. So he was like a great director, but very a little bit pompous or very full of himself kind of thing. So this one is about. It's really told from the point of view of someone who sees that everyone is doing all these retrospectives on Kubrick and museum pieces on him and making money on that. So he wants to just put together like interviews with all these people that barely even knew Kubrick. It's sort of making fun of celebrity culture, like this, his colon hydrotherapist and his gas station attendant, his termite inspector, and stuff like that. So this is one of them. I'll read one section. Cut me off if I go. It's about his. It's called Frederick, the part-time dentist.
Right.
I was Stanley's dentist for one improbable visit. This is in 1968, shortly after his regular practitioner mishandled a root canal. Stanley needed a cavity drilled fast before returning to the set of 2001: A Space Odyssey. I started off with the routine cleaning, lots of plaque, yellowing bicuspids, some minor bleeding of the gums. I recommended a periodontist. He disliked this advice, but I pressed him and also offered detailed instructions on brushing his teeth in a more efficacious fashion. I've read 6 books on brushing, 12 on flossing, he replied. Maybe, I parried back, but you don't seem to be pressing the brush firmly enough against the gums. I'm busy perfecting a new front screen projection technique for a film about an astronaut that transcends the space-time continuum, he snapped. Excuses. The script is being co-written by Arthur C. Clarke, the preeminent science fiction writer of our time. Your gingivitis is still horrible. Eventually he agreed that in spite of his impressive filmography, he needed to brush in a more calculated fashion. I proceeded to drill the cavity that had been giving him such agony. As I did so, I recited a series of chicken-cross-the-road jokes, none of which he found remotely amusing. True, he may have been preoccupied with the Dawn of Man sequence, which earlier in his visit he wouldn't shut up about. Still, he could have at least displayed some minimal appreciation for my lifelong passion. Hurt that Kubrick was not amused in the slightest, I drilled the cavity a bit more fiercely than necessary. I saw his fist clench into a ball and noticed the beads of sweat form on his quivering forehead. I had him. I was Crassus, and he's Spartacus up on the cross. Ha! Not so ingenious now, are we, Stanley? Spit and rinse, I commanded. He tried, missing the mark. He witnessed the great aesthete spitting wildly, the drool sliding down his dingy beard, turned my whole body into a sponge of delight. What gives, he asked. You've been drilling this cavity for 2 infernal hours. Patience, Stanley, patience. Patience, you just drilled half my face off, you goddamn jackal. What an arrogant wanker. He required up to 140 takes for his actors to deliver a scene that reaches its lofty standards. But he expects perfection from his dental practitioner right out of the gate? The hypocrisy! I put the tubes back in his mouth and continued as before. I wasn't drilling near his cavity, just boring a hole in the side of his tooth for the sadistic pleasure it engendered. As I drilled, I moved on to a series of Borscht Belt jokes revolving around a fly in a man's suit. He squirmed and twisted, writhing even, the joke seemingly as excruciating as the obscene drilling. After about the 400th stellar punchline, he screamed with a deafening intensity and knocked all my instruments to the ground. He then cursed me and every last one of my descendants and left without paying. Do I feel guilty about torturing such a visionary artist? Not at all. The egocentric miscreant deserved it.
Brilliant. I love that tongue-in-cheek manner in which you approach it. Thanks so much for that.
Oh, yes. So it's kind of like these wild flights of fantasy, and these very strange situations that he gets into. And that's kind of what I'm into. It's sort of like what they would call like the tradition of a humorist,
Right.
satire and that sort of thing.
Absolutely. I can actually see now as to how you being a satirist dovetails so seamlessly into you being a stand-up comedian as well. And one is influencing the other. Now, I always wanted to ask stand-up comedians this. How do you manage to remember all those lines during the entire show and with the right pauses and the right punchlines? Timing is everything, right? I mean, timing is sacrosanct. What kind of preparation goes into that?
Well, it's a combination because part of it is you develop a routine over time, so you're used to jokes and you sort of know because you practice them. Okay, they laugh here, so cut out this part, or so you develop it. And then there's also just experience. Sometimes if things aren't working, you have to bounce off your joke and be in the moment. And sometimes that will get a bigger laugh than your best joke. So it depends. There's a lot to it. But the memorization is the easy part, I'd say, because after time, you sort of just get it. It's just like, I guess it's like if you were an Olympic athlete, you're like, how do you throw the javelin? Well, he does it all the time, so he's used to it. Or you ask the novelist, how do you come up with the ideas? Well, he's outlined, So if you do it enough, you develop it. But I'm trying to remember if at the beginning, and you know what? No, it always comes out slightly different. There could be a shade of variation. Sometimes you add another tag here, or you stop, or that's good to be in the moment because things will happen. Like the waitress drops the drink, and you're like, damn, something. You have to come up with something. Right. Especially if it's at your critical punchline where you're supposed to get like the applause break, and now the waitress and everyone's watching her. So you can't just do your punchline the way you were doing it. The world has changed. So
right.
So that's what makes it interesting. It's very now. This is gone. I wrote it, but it was a time and place thing.
Right.
And stand up, you're trying to recreate it always.
Correct, right. Yeah. And I believe you have performed in 7 countries. Right? Mm-hmm. Where did you think the audience had the best sense of humor, or in the sense they brought out the best in you?
Well, I love doing stand-up in Lisbon, Portugal.
Right.
In fact, I am reportedly the first person ever to do stand-up in English there. And they loved me. I mean, it was incredible. I mean, you couldn't stop them from laughing. And I think it's because they didn't understand what I was saying. You know what I mean? It's a lot funnier when you don't know what I'm saying. You don't get all, I don't know, or it was maybe my gestures and it was just so weird, and I tried to, but that was good. Everywhere, actually, a lot of these, I was in Denmark and I was in Sweden and France and Edinburgh for the Edinburgh Festival. And, a lot of those international crowds are great, I found. And, they don't throw tomatoes at you. And they're now in the British audiences are very polite. Very good, very good. Good show, yeah. Or they just like nod there very politely. But the Scottish are like, hey, the good one, mate. I can't say what it is because I don't know if this is clean, but they're putting out references to the genitalia and like very crude things, just screaming, hey, a good one, mate, or whatever they're screaming, So that makes it interesting. I like those Scottish people, but they drink so much, and you can't understand when they're sober. Then they start drinking, and it's forget it. I don't know if you've ever heard. I think there's a BBC where it's I forget the name of it, but one of the BBCs is in Gaelic.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Well, that language is impossible to understand. It looks like when you watch that, I would watch that just for amusement to learn new words and stuff. So if you want some entertainment, you guys have BBC over there, don't you?
Absolutely. I watch it all the time.
Good. Even though there were the British imperialist lords over you guys, you still are able to watch.
We don't have any animosity towards them. That's the most wonderful thing, And that's how probably English has been. I think it's the language of communication in more ways than one for all of us. Probably because we have such a diverse culture. We have so many languages. So this is the connecting language, so to say.
No animosity?
No animosity. I know. I don't think we really hate the British in that sense or any such thing. Far from it.
Well, I gotta say that's better than my. I'm Jewish. That's better than my people. We have a little bit of an issue with the Germans. It's hard.
that's completely different. Yes, absolutely.
I mean, because sometimes I see a German in the crowd, and I'm like, "Are you the guy who killed my grandparents?" You know what I mean? I want to know. And so no, I try to let it go. But there's always a little bit of when I was there, and you go to the Holocaust Museum, it's a little rough, So,
absolutely. That's but I think we have dealt with colonization in a different way.
Yeah, it's better because Gandhi and the whole peace and so much and the whole. Now, what do you think of that movie with that? He was a British guy that played it, right? The Gandhi movie.
Yes, Richard Attenborough, Sir Richard Attenborough.
Yeah, I thought that was a powerful movie, or was it too Hollywood?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when I watched it the first time, I was a baby. I was a kid actually, but then subsequently when I watched it, it was really impressive, and I love the acting. It's so true to life, and I think for many of us, it kind of gave more insight into the man and his functioning. So it's always nice. Some brilliantly made adaptations and such biopics are always eye openers.
Right, and then my last name. I know they have movies with my last name. You know my last name, right?
Yeah, Nagin. Yeah, I actually wanted to ask you about that. I mean, it would have been one of the questions that I would be asking you. What does it actually mean?
Well, I know what it means in Indian, but I don't know. I'm not actually Indian. So, because I know it only because I went to the bank and there was an Indian man who was helping me open an account. Right. And he saw my name and he freaked. Nagin, Nagin, Nagin. And he told me it's a whole evil snake. And then I looked it up and there's a whole series of movies around it. And the women are doing the Bollywood Nagin dance and stuff. So I should be a big hit in your country, I think, If you're looking for a real Nagin right here.
Just that your male version, Nagin actually is referred to a female snake.
I'm the reincarnation of Nagin. I don't know if that's good or bad, but I already got branding in your country. In fact, if I ever can get a Comedy Central special, I want that Nagin theme song
playing in the background. Right, that's interesting. All right. Now, given your penchant for being a satirist and the fact that some of the leading publications like the Humor Times, the Satirist, New York Post, among several others, have featured your work, uh, and it naturally sits very well with you being a stand-up comedian. When did you discover you have a talent for this?
Well, I sort of just fell into it. I basically was in this creative group, and they wanted us to do a sketch, and I pretended I was an alien or something, and they were saying, "You're so funny," everyone was laughing. You should do stand up. And I was like, man, but everyone was laughing so much. I figured, all right, I'll go to an open mic, which is where you start in New York. You pay $5 and you get 5 minutes. So I go to the open mic, and I had no idea what I was doing, to be honest with you. I did a whole routine about my elbow going in for a job as a substitute teacher. I'm like, hey, I would like to get hired as a teacher. Hey man, well we're not in the habit of hiring body parts. Oh come on, it's discrimination against elbow. Like this whole thing for like 5 minutes. No one laughed. I thought it was funny, but you know, the crowd was just other people were like,
Oh gosh.
yeah. And then not even a sound, no clapping when I got off stage. Probably they were happy, but they didn't express it. And then some guy comes up to me, hey, you got to talk about relationships. You got to talk about drugs. And, hey, you know what I mean? What are you talking about? You're doing 5 minutes on your elbow? Huh? But I actually like the elbow thing. But anyway, so that was the start. I was like, okay, I want to figure this out. And I thought it was cool because you could be in front of people and hopefully make them laugh. And I was like, I'm interested in this. And I think that was about 14 years ago, believe it or not.
Right.
So I developed and I had many experiences, playing in clubs and festivals. I did it on TV for shortly on the Dr. Steve show and various other things.
Right.
So hosted a film festival and whatnot. So
Who are your favorite stand-up comedians and some of the shows that you really, really are fond of?
in terms of big names, I mean they're famous.
Yes, some of the famous comedy shows.
There's lesser known that people wouldn't know, but for terms of famous people, yeah, like a Stephen Wright because he's such a smart writer. Bill Hicks was just very political and thoughtful. There's so many. There's like a Kinnison, which was just have that rage. Andy Kaufman for being weird. Robin Williams just for the sheer performance and all the characters and the brilliance of that. Honestly, there's hundreds of different influences, and I would say probably in terms of everything, maybe my number one influence though would be Woody Allen.
Right.
Yeah, I'm a diehard fan of his, and if there was anything that got me into, sorry, mom and dad, but there's anything that got me into comedy and writing, all the stuff that film was my fascination with him and his sensibility. I love the guy of that, and he took that a little from Bob Hope, the hapless loser guy, the neurotic guy, the guy who you would think is like a little bit of a schnook, but he redeems himself with his wit, and with his intelligence and with his creativity. So that is always funny to me and interesting.
Right. Fair enough. Fair enough. Now, would you please tell us about your directorial venture, your debut directorial venture, The Inside Job? I believe it's highly, highly acclaimed, right? It's featured in the short film category at 6 film festivals. It won the best shot at the Mediterranean Film Festival, Cannes, and the best supporting actor at the Nice International Film Festival too. Would you like to speak about this, please?
Yeah, so that's like a dark comedy, and it's about an intern who starts at a new job where he thinks it's a travel agency, but really they're like in a cult.
Right.
And not only do they think that 9/11 was like this inside job with the government, which some people actually believe. They're called truthers, but they have all these weird rituals and expectations of him, which he's not prepared for at all because they're whacked out, crazy people. And so he just has to get out of there. But the one girl seduces him. The boss is just a maniac with the drugs and the various other things that he's telling him to do. So it's sort of like his experience in this with this world. And there's more to it, but that would spoil it. But it's one of those things. I tried to make a film with a lot of plot twists, and there was a lot of turns and out of what you're not expecting, and things sort of come around. So yeah, even though it's a short film, it goes for 34 minutes, which is pretty long.
Right.
And it's a long, short film. You could get some popcorn, some juju fruits. You make an afternoon of it. And it was a great experience. There's certain things, of course, now knowing what I know, I would do better or differently. But it did. Luckily, that was my first film really outside of making in college, and it did get in some festivals and win some awards, which was great. And I would love to make another. It's been hard to get together, and so I've been focused more on the writing lately.
Right. Oh, so there is one more in the pipeline. You're working on something.
Well, not right now. I'm working on novels, but I have other scripts that I've thought, and other collaborators, and maybe I will have to sell them to someone, or maybe I'll be able to make them. I would love to direct a feature, but the opportunity hasn't arisen yet. Right. It's a big undertaking. So I from doing that, it was a massive undertaking for me because I had to learn everything. I didn't go to film school, so I learned about
right.
Color correction, sound editing, working with other technicians, but learning about various things with the composer. There's a lot more to it than I realized to try to make a decent quality film. So, the acting, yes, I know a decent amount about from my experiences, and the writing. But the directing part the actors was easy, but the technical aspects was another thing too that was very interesting, but still there's more to be learned there, a lot more. So
that's interesting. Is there another poetry collection that you're planning?
You know what? After this, I was like, that's enough with the poetry for a while. I have as many as 4 books. They're not complete. 2 of them are basically complete.
Right.
2 others are still in progress. So 2 are novels, and they're comedic and satirical. 1 is a short story collection, some comedic, some like horror and dark, because I sometimes go in that realm. And then 1 is like comedic essays, memoir, based off experiences in my life. So that one might actually be more relatable than this one. I don't know. This is more like cultural criticism. That one is more like things that actually happened to me and my responses to it. And so that is over a period of time that would obviously hopefully come out. They're all, in progress, but those I'm hoping to, eventually put those books out over time, the next couple of years, and we'll see where that leads.
Right, fair enough. What has been your publishing experience like? How easy was it, or how difficult was it to have your works published?
It's difficult to get works published. Very competitive in various. Depends on where you want to publish it, though.
Right.
If you just want to put up an essay on Medium or something, very easy. So the market is changing, and now you have self-publishing. So a lot of things are changing. In a way, it's good because it's empowering for the individual. Anyone can put things out there. So you don't need to wait for the gatekeepers as much.
True. I think that has really helped a lot of indie authors.
Mm-hmm. So that's the good. The bad is it's hard to distinguish yourself and get an audience and get people to. And also, there's less readers today. People are much more entranced by streaming and YouTube. I'm not even on the TikTok yet, but I know everyone's on the TikTok. They say,
Right.
"Why aren't you on the TikTok, man? You should be on Tiki-Tocky." And I will probably eventually tick to the talk, but I haven't joined
Right.
the cavalry there yet. So yeah, I enjoy. There's something about writing that is very primal to me that can't be replaced. It's even the like I like writing. Like you see here, like this is a draft, right,
Right.
of a book, and I just handwrite everything. See, like it's just crazy.
Lovely. So you still follow the old school method? You put pen on paper, literally.
Pen on paper, not always, because that's just my first draft. I find something organic about using a pen,
Absolutely.
using a paper, and I also, this is just personal, I think a cheap notebook is best. Why? You do a fancy notebook, you treat it too holier than thou, and it becomes pressure. You're like, oh my, I have to write like some, famous, like Shakespeare or something. Here, it's just messy scribble scratch, so it's no pressure. And of course, then I will go type it and refine it and improve it and revise it. But I like for the first draft for it to be handwritten. And there's nothing like that experience where as a creative, you can just tap into that another world and create all these characters. You can create dialogue, you can create scenes, you can create a whole world building. To me, there's no creativity that matches that. That's like the bliss that you can. Poetry is great, don't get me wrong, but that is sort of like the Mecca. See that a Jew saying the word Mecca? Holy cow! It must be really special. Don't shoot me here. Don't. If there's any people, this is just jokes.
Absolutely. And that's where satire is, and that's exactly why satire has such a huge space.
Yeah.
I think we really need to be able to take a joke and treat a joke for what it is, rather than getting touchy and overtly sensitive about it.
In fact, I don't know if I'm supposed to say about this, but I like just talking. That I actually I won't say the person, but I had some interest from an Indian producer to make a short film from one of the film festivals, and I had actually written a script to be based in India. So it's actually funny. Like, and now then COVID hit, and I don't know if it's going to fall through or it's actually going to happen. But it was a comedy, and I think it was a great idea. And if there's anyone out there that is interested, I have what I think is a really funny script, and it's not too out there. It's very simple, but very good story, that I'm looking to someone to either make or to ideally direct, or someone else to direct. It could be turned into a full feature, actually, but right now it's a short film.
Interesting. I really hope that happens. We would always love to watch such things. Now, what has been the best compliment that you've received so far? Something that has stayed with you?
Does it have to be an expression or words or?
No, any which ways. Something that or someone who has complimented you, and you found that extremely appealing.
Well, okay. Can I give a bit of context behind it? Otherwise, It wouldn't make. So, I have something called Crohn's disease. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that over there.
But yeah, I'm aware of that.
It's a gastrointestinal issue. So basically, I'm involved with a charity for this Crohn's disease, and I was given an award. And at the award, I had made a rap video about the Crohn's disease, and I wanted to play it. And before it was to be played, some of the people of the organization were questioning whether they could play it because they thought it was too risque. Some of the kinds of things, that come up where they're worried with the charity that it has the proper thing, and then other people took my side. Eventually, luckily, it played. But one of the women and it had a big response. But one of the women, it's not just that, because my grandma that I mentioned before died at the event. It's a really crazy night. She actually passed away at the event, and I was going to continue on and do my speech and play the video, but the whole event was going on, so I continued on, and it got a big response. And then the woman, one of the ones who was detractors of me playing the video, came up to me and said that she was not a fan of the video. She didn't think when she had watched it was definitely appropriate, but seeing the response and seeing how much everyone loved it, she apologized and said that it was really great, and she was sorry that she tried to censor it. So that to me was like really meaningful moment.
It's lovely. It's lovely. Who is your most trusted critic when you finish your work, when you finish your writing, when you're getting ready to publish it? You do run it by this person, and you swear by their advice.
I have some friends that will review my works and will share work. But also, what I like to show first is my girlfriend, and she, believe it or not, will tell me if she doesn't like it or not. She's not shy, so
good.
So I mean, she's encouraging, but if she thinks it, she's also can be a little tough, which is good. That's what I'm looking for. So
right, fair enough. All right. Any special message for viewers of the Writer Talks, Matt?
Well, I assume that there's other writers listening, maybe, right?
Right.
So I say one message I could say is, if you are a writer, just keep at it. Because it's a difficult journey, but it is a journey, and the more you do it, the better you get. For me, I've been doing this a long time, and I feel that I keep improving. But it took a long time till I felt like I was writing something that I was feeling happy with.
Right.
And even now, I don't always feel happy with it, of course. But yeah, so I think it's one of those things that the number one aspect I always think is just, if you stick with it, if you make it a regular habit and you keep writing, there's no telling what can happen. But it really takes that commitment, and so that would be what I would always say is like the number one thing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Matt, and thank you so much for taking the time out. You have such a hectic schedule, and truly, truly honored to have you on the Writer Talks.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm a big fan of the things I read of yours as well. I'm very intelligent and smart, and so I enjoyed being here, being your guest. And I hope all of India is listening.
I really hope so. Thank you so much. You're really kind.
All right.
Hope to see you again very soon, and all the best for your upcoming ventures.
Thank you. Same to you.
Thank you. Ahoy.